I'm Mina Malik Hussain and you're watching The Coffee Table, and today I'm particularly excited because with COVID I never have people on set, but today I have not one but two guests. It's an exceptional set of circumstances also, so don't feel like everybody can do this. But it's also a very special show because today we're going to be talking about a wonderful project called Safar Hifazat that these two wonderful ladies have been working tirelessly on with their excellent team with the Noor Center for Research and Policy. Mustn't get it wrong. So, I'm so excited to be welcoming today on the set Ms. Saman Tahir, who is a technical advisor at the Noor Center for Research and Policy. She is a public health nutritionist. She was the lead grant writer for the Safar Hifazat project and has a master's in nutrition from Michigan State. And also joining us today is Ms. Maha Younis, who has a master's in food science and human nutrition. She specializes in medical nutrition therapy and also is working with the Safar Hifazat project. I don't want to hog too much time sort of blabbing about it myself. Well, welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have my sofa populating with like vaccinated people, which is great. So I want to begin at the beginning. Saman. So tell me a little bit about the Noor Center. Now, I know that it is associated with the Fatima Memorial Hospital, which in itself is such an iconic institution in Lahore and was set up by an iconic woman with such great feminist principles, and I'm a big fan of Sayyida Waheed. So tell me a little bit about the Noor Center.
So specifically about the Noor Center, I would say that it was founded in 2006, and the vision behind, establishing it was that we wanted to conduct research on social sector, health, education, but then not just conduct research, but generate evidence and take it to the top level, to the policymakers, so that they are making informed policies that actually reform practice. And with, in terms of the target population, our focus has always been underserved, marginalized, vulnerable people, living in rural areas, peri-urban areas, who don't have access to these facilities that, as we privileged people do. So that was the goal behind it. We've been working on a diverse range of internationally and nationally funded projects. We worked with the government, we worked with USAID, UNICEF, DFID, which is Department for International Aid, UK. And most of our projects have been focused on adolescent, maternal, and child health. So that is our area of expertise.
And it's really important because I think when we talk about family values and we talk about families, and these are the main three sort of segments of society that we are looking at, and they are the most vulnerable, women and children.
Definitely.
And then I think it's really important that we sort of look at children, and that's what Safar Hifazat is doing, is we're not just looking at children, but we're looking at adolescents who are sort of, not quite adults and not really children anymore. And that's a sort of also a very sort of particular kind of vulnerable, I feel.
That I would say that that's a transitional phase towards like you are being grown up, you are experiencing different changes in your body, around you, your mood swings. That needs to be catered very carefully. And that is what not being catered, I suppose. We don't talk about it. We don't discuss things. That is what makes them a little or more vulnerable, I would say.
No, absolutely. And I think it's really great that you brought that up because, again, I think that this is something that goes across culture also, that adolescents are notoriously difficult. But it's a tricky time in life also. Your body is changing, your mood swings, everybody is annoying. And then, you're at that phase where you think everybody's wrong, especially your parents. So I feel like there is that gap there where it's really hard for parents and adolescents to communicate. And I don't want to say just parents, but also caregivers or guardians or
teachers.
Older people, teachers or healthcare people, your doctor, people who look after you.
Definitely.
And well, I sort of we'll cycle back to that because I could talk for ages about this. Being a parent myself, I'm like, it's very difficult. But I want to go back to evidence that you talked about, Saman. So we do so many shows where we're talking about policy and we're talking about social issues and we're talking about research, but I feel like evidence-based and the numbers is what's really crucial, because how can you have policy if you don't have numbers? And data is often the biggest thing that's tripping us up when it comes to effective policy making.
Definitely. I think first I'll add a little bit on the vulnerability thing that I had something really good to say in that. So it's basically called an intergenerational cycle of poverty, right?
Right.
So adolescence is very critical because not only are they neglected in most policies as a segment of the population, but also because they are on the brink of adulthood. And considering the number of early marriages that happen in our country, and these young girls who are, you know, biologically immature themselves and have to deal with the trauma of, you know, childbirth, not only once but maybe multiple times with inadequate birth spacing. So when they themselves are, you know, deficient and not at their optimal health, they give birth to children who are deficient.
Absolutely.
So they need to know better for themselves that they have, you know, sexual and reproductive health rights. And specifically for marginalized populations, if I consider myself, even my own knowledge as an adolescent was limited, coming from a privileged background. So you can imagine how unaware and unexposed these children could be. And when you talk about evidence, yes, evidence and numbers are what need, is what you need to speak to the policymakers, to people who are of high influence. But at the same time, I think other than numbers, you need community buy-in. You need you need to create demand first, because you cannot be pitching and advocating for something that they don't want. And you cannot be an outsider who goes to their community and says, oh, I think this is wrong with your community and this is a solution we propose, till we get them on board from day one. So that is one thing that I feel.
That community is crucial, and even when we're talking about providing safe spaces for adolescents or people for them to talk to, like there's no rule that you can only talk to your parents. So you can confide in anybody around you, an older person who you trust. And that's where community comes in. But it's also really interesting. And Maha, maybe you can tell me a little bit about this. So then how was then Safar Hifazat, what is the idea behind Safar Hifazat?
Okay, basically what the name denotes is a journey towards safety. That's exactly what we meant. We wanted to provide a platform, a component that students can deal with, basically. It was done in schools of Lahore, government schools of Lahore. There they were being taught a curriculum that was called life skill based education curriculum. It had components including values, gender roles, effective communication, and 19 total of themes.
Wow, that's a lot of themes.
Yes, and something that you just mentioned, that not only guardians, not only parents, but students or children can talk to anyone they feel comfortable with. That's exactly what we experienced while doing this. A student quoted this, narrated this whole incident, that the girl was, her friend was really upset, and she kept on asking what happened. And there was this cousin who was doing some, I would say, molesting her. And she could not talk about it with anyone else but her friend. So her friend took the whole case and discussed with her parents, and then they discussed. Then they tried to communicate to her parents that there's something wrong with your child. So that's how things move on. And how did the girl got the confidence? That was our lectures or what she was being taught through LSBE courses. So this is what LSB is doing. The LSB curriculum is doing to students.
So, Saman, why do we call it a curriculum? Is it like a subject?
So ideally, it should be a part of the national curriculum, which is what we wanted to achieve, and inshallah are working towards achieving it. But we call it as a separate curriculum because it basically is not a traditional subject. It focuses on all the essential skills that an adolescent requires to survive, which includes awareness of his or her own rights, awareness of marriage, what it brings, the challenges it brings, awareness of puberty, the changes that are associated with it, feelings, the mixed feelings that they're going through, the violence, the anger, the peer pressure, all the issues that they can face, and that can decide between them being a responsible, productive citizen as opposed to someone who can eventually be dropped off from school or maybe become a delinquent or has violence or aggressive issues. So we want to give them that safe space, because a lot of these children are facing coming from broken homes as well. A lot of them are coming from low socioeconomic status, so their set of challenges are completely different as compared to an urban adolescent. So they have it worse, and they need this.
No, that's so important. And I'm also now thinking of how Safar Hifazat, there was a whole research study done as well for Safar Hifazat before the program sort of, was put into place. And I know that there was also, it was a response, because now we do have statistics, right? And I know that it sounds alarming to talk about this, but this is a reality of our lives, and not just as adults, but the lived reality of so many children in this country. And I wrote it down, but it was the organization Sahil put out that report, and then as of August 2020, as many as, almost 1,500 kids are being molested. That's about 8 per day. And I assume that these are only sort of statistics where people have reported cases or have shared information or have actually, sort of cooperated with researchers to tell us this. And even when we're reading the newspaper and things, like there are so many incidents that just keep happening every single day. And do you feel like that was also one of the things that went into Safar Hifazat as a program? Like this is something that you guys have considered very sort of distinctly?
When I wrote this grant, it was when Zainab's case of Kasoor was at its height. Then we were really emotionally moved from it, considering I myself have a daughter, and I could not imagine this happening to someone else's daughter. So when this grant came in, and the theme was sexual and reproductive health rights, and since the topic has a lot of taboos and conservative operating environment around it, so we decided to embed it in a life skills curriculum. So the driving force behind this was Zainab's case, and which is why we wanted to make a difference.
Adding to that, what you just said, that being a mother, how it moved her, I can quote an incident from one of the field learnings. There was this mother, while we were doing the parent sensitization set, these meetups with parents, to convince them to ask their point of view, that how would they want their students to, their kids to learn this through these schools or not. One of the mothers started crying right away. Like they were that moved that we can't even think of that somebody else other than us can think about us, for our students, our kids like that. That is how we connected it to the parents and students.
And it's also a burden on teachers, and we're going to take a very quick break at this juncture and come back to that, but that's something that I'm very interested in, especially with the parents, and having to sort of make that breakthrough to the caregivers of these adolescents to be able to get to those kids and to make sure that the learnings are something that they can sort of, work with and develop as they sort of go along. Because it's not just that, you just did a course and now it's done. This is a lifelong learning process. Going to take a very quick break at this juncture. Stay with us. We're back in a flash. Welcome back to the coffee table, where we are having a riveting conversation about the Safar Hifazat project with Wonder Girls, Saman, Tahir and Maha, Younis, who are working on the project. Sorry, I call you Wonder Girls, like you were babies, but you know what I mean. So I know that when the Safar Hifazat project was being developed, there was an extensive research study that went into developing how the curriculum would look like. And that's really interesting to me, because before the break, we were talking about how you said that you need to get the community on board whenever you want to develop any kind of policy, and that any project is only as effective as the sort of sincerity or the extent to which stakeholders are engaged and on board with that project. And especially when we're talking about adolescents, who in any case, culturally, we don't really take them seriously, because they're kids, right? And they're just children. And they're not just children, but they're particularly like stroppy in between, like they don't know what they need.
We label them as it's the age.
Exactly, the age.
Yeah, it's the age.
But in order to do that, and I know that the research study was so, I think, intelligent in looking and talking to parents, like you said, Maha, before the break as well, but then also teachers. And that's also something that's really important as well, because a lot of adolescents, a lot of kids spend their most time in school and then are trying to talk to teachers. So how was it like, what were the sort of conversations that the team had to have with teachers when it came to developing the project?
So first, one of the first component the study had was the training of the facilitators. We will call them facilitators, teachers and healthcare providers from Fatima Memorial Hospital. Their instant reaction to the training was, why would we need this? It's just a book. We can we can just deliver it to the students the way we have been doing it. But later, after a good 4 days, their perception was totally changed. Not only theirs, but ours as well. How they have realized the selection of words, the words that needs to be used with that kind of that age bracket of those students, that the kind of medium they have to use, the kind of the terms they have to use, how they are going to define all kind of themes they were being taught. That was an eye opener for us, that how perspectives changed.
Yeah. And yes.
And not only that, I think also the teacher and student relationship is very, I'm the teacher, I am right, and it's a very strict relationship, right? So, and especially in public schools, we've noticed that there's this really stringent way of teaching, right? And they have these deliverables that they have to, achieve, and they're very overburdened. They don't have time to notice behavior changes in children or issues, or they see that, oh, this student is lately sitting in the back, or is quiet, was never that quiet. These are the cues that a teacher can pick on among students, right? And considering that the amount of time they spend with the child, they're best placed to do that. And they're also taken seriously by the parents and by the students. So they have that power. So I think part of the training that Maha talked about was also instilling in them a sense of empathy. Empathy for their students, that they are going through all of this turmoil in those tiny bodies and brains of theirs, and they need help, and they may not ask for it.
No, I think that's so crucial, because a lot of times teachers aren't empathetic. It is true. In schools across the board, a lot of times it's like, they feel like they have to maintain that sort of image in order to have authority. And you can have authority, but you can also be looking out. I suppose it's also fostering a sense of responsibility for your students also, where it's a sort of, it's a give and take relationship in a way as well.
And I think I'll just quote this word in Urdu, taaleem or tarbiyat.
Yes.
So taaleem is like education is being focused on, but the upbringing element is, kind of, neglected. So that is what we're trying to bring back.
I would just add to that, we had these interaction sessions with the students, weekly interaction sessions, just to know what the feedback for what we were doing. One of the students just quoted, I just asked them that, why are you discussing this with us? Like, how you're so comfortable with this? Like, I do visit you guys weekly or monthly, but you're so comfortable with this. They just quoted one single line, and that literally moved me, that you're listening to us. That one line. I can quote that like for life, I would say. You're listening to us. You are there for us. You're trusting what we are saying. That is what actually, I think that is where we need to develop that bond between teachers and students. They really want someone to listen to them.
And then the second tier is parents then. And I was looking at this wonderful video that Safar Hifazat has about how so many parents were delighted with the outcomes, because they said, well, one mom is saying that my two daughters actually now talk to me about things. And you can just tell from her eyes, she's got a niqab on, but she just looks really pleased, even just from the eyes, that they're being sort of able to find the vocabulary to communicate with their children. And it might not be 100%, and maybe you don't even need it for it to be 100%, but just this idea that the adults in your life can be trusted, or that there are things you need to talk about. And I think that's one thing that for me was really interesting about the various modules being taught in the curriculum, because they cover so many different things and so many different subjects. But before I ask you about those, Maha, what was it like, what was the parents' response before the project and then after?
This was other than the training, the second important our step was towards sensitization of the parents. We really wanted to take them in loop to just let them know that what we are going to do with their students, their kids enrolled in those schools. We were not expecting much parents to turn up on those meetings, not at all. Like we were like, retaliation, they really retaliation, they won't be too comfortable. They'll be like, why our kids need to be there? But to our surprise, there was this one school where there were more than 100 mothers.
Really? Wow.
More than 100 mothers
mummies
in that hall. And we were like, whoa, this is something we really need to talk about this. We really need to, let's just give them the platform and let it be. And that's, I would say, a win, another win for us for that during that project.
No, it truly is. But did you feel like initially there was some hesitancy maybe because they were like, but if you're going to talk to them about decision making, for example, or about taking control of your life and about consent and about, an awareness about social issues and your rights as an individual, then do you think that was making parents nervous that, oh goodness, now you're giving them the wrong ideas? And
I think, that is a general assumption that we've made that, there's going to be backlash from the community if you're going to go talk about these topics. But we were very surprised. We didn't see that because I think, as she said, there were 100 mothers present in that hall. I think those 100 mothers did not want to make the same mistakes with their daughters, right? So that's why I think we had a lot of parental support. We did not receive any major backlash from parents, and it also depends on how you go about the right words, the way you approach a topic, and maintain some cultural sensitivity, ensure that, sensitive topics are being taught separately, are being taught by female teachers to female students and male teachers to male students, so there's a way of going about it. Nobody's asking you to be very bold and very, very, use like big terms, you can be very subtle about it and communicate a message.
No, I think that's really important, that discretion and intelligence, so that everybody feels comfortable, because it's a sort of, it's that balance where it is information that is like people, even parents feel a little nervous talking about issues like puberty and things like that with their kids. So if you're doing that, it's already a sensitive topic, but it's also really important to talk to them about so many things. And yeah, we're really happy about this. So, but someone tell me about the boys, because I think a lot of times, a lot of awareness programs and campaigns revolve around educating girls, but they kind of tend to leave out the boys, because I think culturally as well, boys are sort of left to fend for themselves a lot. Because when we're also talking about protection and self-defense and consent and things, we seem to kind of have this very incorrect assumption that boys don't need that knowledge, but they do.
I think the stereotype itself that is associated with the male gender involves not opening up.
Yes.
Not sharing feelings, not crying, not doing anything that makes them look feminine, whether it's helping their mothers in the house or helping their sisters in the house, So they are raised with that notion. So I think they're equally vulnerable. We in this society right now, yes, I know that they may have chances to step out of that, or they tend to have more sources of information, maybe compared to the girls, because they get to go out of the house, meet other people, as compared to the girls, but they still need structured guidance, like the girls. Same way, there's no difference.
Yeah. So because when it comes down to protection, and again, I'm thinking about the Sahil statistics as well, vulnerability is, I wouldn't say the same, but boys are vulnerable too, and it's just incorrect to assume that just because they're boys, they are, they will automatically know what to do in a situation. And that's where Safar Hifazat is also looking at strategies to cope and to sort of, what are the strategies?
So when we, so the entire curriculum is not solely focused on good touch, bad touch, abuse. There are other topics. For example, peer pressure. Boys tend to have a lot of that, smoking, drugs, alcohol. Then there's a whole topic on feelings and, how expressing them is normal. And you will be surprised, there were above 60% of the students thought that sharing their feelings is not normal.
That really boggles my brain. And this was boys and girls, or was it mostly
Yes, it was a
boys?
collective figure, 60%. And, with respect to...
So they were just, and I'm sort of obsessed with this now that you've said. So 60% thereabouts, kids, boys and girls, both thought that they should just stay quiet about how they feel and that they should be repressing their feelings and bottling it all up.
Yes.
because it's seen as
so if they
rude.
disagree with something, if they don't like something, they don't say it. So they just thought staying quiet is the best way, and not being expressive, right? And then there were topics around anger, how to deal with anger, and especially with boys, violence and other behaviors that come out later. Graffiti, rash driving, these all happen with adolescents, right? So we need to talk about it.
Yeah. No, but wow. And I have a whole other bunch of statistics because I just found it utterly fascinating, where also things like, an awareness of, and when we're talking about rights, and I think that there is also this this assumption that a 13 or 14-year-old, because that's the group that Safar Hifazat was working with, that they aren't, that they're not mature enough to understand these things, and they're also not mature enough to sort of, to make sensible decisions.
That is what I just wanted to quote. It's not only just restricted to adolescents. What I think is, even if you're going to be a bride to be in a day or two, you're not allowed to read your nikah-nama.
Also, I feel like it also opens our eye to, how much more training that needs to be done for even the marriage registrars, because it is their job to look at the ID card to make sure the bride and the groom are not underage. It is their job to ensure that they understand the clause in the contract that they are signing. And it wasn't just divorce, but also a haq meher.
Yes.
A lot of girls did not know that it was just meant for them, and it was their right, and they need to claim it from their husbands. And these adolescents, maybe some parents and teachers will be like, oh, it's too early to discuss this. Why are you discussing this with children? But 8th grader or 9th grader in a rural area would probably be a parent in a couple of years.
Yes.
So they need to know this, and it is the right time to tell them about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's also really important for the boys to know, because again, this is one of my pet peeves, that we keep sort of educating girls about their rights and about their rights in religion and their social rights and, all of these things, but we don't do it for the boys who in patriarchies have all the power. So if they don't know that these are things that are expected of them, then they're not going to do it either.
Definitely.
So again, more statistics, but we're going to take a very quick break and then come back in 1 second. Stay with us. Welcome back to the coffee table, where we are having such a wonderful conversation about the magnificent work that the Safar Hifazat project, it was a 4-month-long project that has changed the lives of adolescents immeasurably. And we are in conversation with Saman, Tahir and Maha Younis about this wonderful project. And we've been talking about all these different challenges that adolescents face in their lives, and how we need to be talking to teachers and healthcare providers and parents to kind of, it's a group effort. It's a team effort, and especially with parents, like no parent actively wants to hamstring their child or sort of raise them ill-equipped to deal with life. I don't think any parent actively thinks about this, that yes, I want you to be dependent on me forever. But somehow culturally that tends to happen. But before that, when we're coming back to life skills, and there are so many different components of this particular curriculum with Safar Hifazat. So Maha, I know that you go into the field a lot and you interact with these kiddos. So what components were the ones that resonated the most with these students?
Other than the statistics that we got, there were many field learnings, and the feedback that we got from the students that was like immense, really big for us to know that this is how the project is impacting them. One of them was a peer pressure. They discussed that how they do things when their friends are being told, how they realize that friends are not only going to tell the good stuff only to them, how friends can be teaching them the bad stuff as well. So the peer pressure was one of them. Effective communication, the other one. There was another topic that was effective communication that was important. That had a very big impact on the students. And values, again, that this is not what's going to happen in my family. This is not how we are going to take it. That's not how my elder sister did it. So these were the statements. They were like, yes, I'm going to do this, but this is not how my elder sister did it. So I'm not supposed to do it.
Right. Yes.
This is what literally, I would say, shaken them up about how they're going to think about it, how their school of thought going to change. that's what impacted them a lot.
And also this idea that, for example, decision making, that you can make a decision for yourself, and it can be a decision that impacts your life in a good way. And just because other people in your family did it like this doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do it like that.
True that. Moreover, I don't know, for some reason, this decision word has been associated with something that's really big, something that's going to like a life-changing thing. Maybe that's for them, that is at that point of time.
Yes.
But again, it can be as little as, not, I would not say little to it, but choosing a subject for yourself.
Yes.
You can't do that. Why? Because our family is being a doctor, so you're supposed to be a doctor as well. That is when they realize, no, I want to be an art student, so I'll pick on art subjects. That's when the students were like, okay, we can do that as well. We can say no to what we want and what we don't want, irrespective of what our sisters or what our elder brothers have been doing.
And then communication, that if you learn strategies to communicate those choices, then you're better able to kind of convince your parents also that this is what I'm good at and this is what I would really like to do. And that's tremendous. That's a skill all adolescents should be learning, like across schools and across income and across sort of everything. Because like we were talking about earlier, about how, do you feel like, Saman, it's also important because, you know, we talk a lot in sort of rhetorical terms about how our societies and society across the world, like just generally the world, is becoming more and more violent. And women and children are aggressions against women and children are on the rise. But the one way to counter that is to talk to the kids and to talk to the teenagers and teach them about how, and if you're able to decision making, if that's a part of your life, then when you make a decision, then you are also taking responsibility for that decision. So you can't go through life saying that my parents forced me to become a doctor, that's why I kill people.
I think parents, teachers, and all the gatekeepers that are involved in an adolescent's life need to understand that their role is to provide guidance, to provide support, to provide, to guide them to the right path if they are, doing something that they can foresee is not good for them. But at the same time, they need to let them make their decisions, and that is only how they will have accountability for their actions, be responsible for their lives. And I think that this is important because the anger and the frustration, if you are not given space to flourish as an individual, gathers and bottles up in you.
Yes.
And it is going to come out someday or the other, whether it's in the form of patriarchy, where a husband is beating his wife for all the things that has gone wrong in his life, or whether it's a mother beating her child because she could not take it out elsewhere. So you see these frustrations, and it's not only just violence, it's in the form of bad language, vandalism, a lot of other forms of showing aggressive behavior. Animal abuse, and just taking decisions like, oh, you're not going to go to school because I didn't go to school, just taking it out on the future generation. Had they been allowed to live the life that they wanted to, or at least try to live the life that they wanted to, and God forbid they failed, they would still not regret not trying. So I just feel, and it's okay that, if adolescents have values that are slightly different from from their own family.
Because in the long run, if you're giving them that space to develop a moral sense and a value system which they believe in, then in the long run, you're basically equipping them to deal with any kind of situation that they might face in the future. And I think it was really touching that one of the parents in the video that Safar Hifazat has, an informational video, is about how one parent said that I can't be around my child all the time to protect them.
Definitely.
So, for example, something like peer pressure, or if people around you are if you're in a situation that is not safe, you don't automatically know that A, it's not safe, or B, what do you do if you're in an unsafe scenario?
I think that's where we go wrong, basically. I mean, first there's this hand-holding thing for like quite long years of their age. We are not allowed, we are not even habitual of, we are not even accustomed of thinking that way, that we need to take a certain decision or how we're going to fix this. But then all of a sudden, there's this one age, and then you're supposed to take all the decisions.
Yeah.
You're going to fix this. You're going to fix the problem, but you are not being told that how you are to do it.
Exactly.
That transitional phase that one never experiences that. But gradually you fall into that pit, and you're like, go take the decision now. You fix it.
Just out of the blue. Like either if you get married as a teenager, or you are the man of the house now, and you have to take all these decisions, but you don't innately know this, you have to be trained and you have to be taught. But this is why I suppose it's so important, and I know that this is where the Noor Center's efforts are going now, for the government to expand this program into more government schools. And I know that originally Safar Hifazat was a year-long program, but then it was truncated to 4 months because of the COVID pandemic. But even those 4 months have had such a massive impact on these kids. So I can't imagine what a year-long project would do. Definitely. And so what's the vision for Safar Hifazat now, sort of going into the future?
So right now we are taking these findings and trying to disseminate them, with the widest possible audience.
Yes.
And build a momentum for the government to realize that this is, something that needs to be done. And for that, we're meeting the relevant departments. We met the Minister of Education 2 days back. We're trying to kind of get it incorporated, into the curriculum, and if not incorporated into the curriculum, then at least be introduced as an informal activity that happens once a week, where the teachers are able to deliver a 35 to 40-minute session with the children, because things are getting worse and worse, and this is the right time to take the action. Absolutely. And considering COVID, I would just like to add light on that COVID and a lot of children have now become out of school. So imagine children who are in school are so, their awareness level is so low. Imagine those 50% of Pakistan's children are out of school.
Yes.
So those out of school children are even more vulnerable, right? And COVID has probably put a lot of them who were in school are now out of school.
Yes.
Because their parents lost income, they cannot afford school anymore. And all these issues that we're talking about get escalated to a whole new level when they're not exposed to schools. They are just, either they're employed or they're in their homes. They have to deal with a lot more issues. So that's more the reason of why we need to institutionalize this.
Yeah. So Maha, what's the potential here for a project like Safar Hifazat to also be in private schools? Is that also something that could be potentially done in the future as well? Because at this point I'm like, make sure all the adolescents have it, all of them.
We really wanted it to be that way, that it needs to be taught in all schools of Pakistan or anywhere else. Basically adolescents, how you put it, that all adolescents are needed to be treated in one way or another, as a book, as a separate subject, as a separate class, just what Saman just mentioned. Anything that delivers the message, I think it would be sufficient, and that is what advisable as per our experience. Moreover, what she just mentioned, that what you were asking earlier, that where do you want to see going Safar Hifazat? Initially, what I noticed, that teachers, facilitators who were involved, they took it very personally and they wanted to expand it on their own level. As in, if somebody was associated with the academy, private academies or any tuition centers, they were trying to expand it there without us asking them to do it.
Wow.
Yeah, that is what they told during the COVID break, and they were like, oh, yes, we have been doing this through our tuition centers. We are telling the students that
amazing. This got the ball rolling.
We were like really happy that okay, this is not what we were expecting you to do, but you did it on your own, knowing the fact that how they feel that it is important, how it is essential for their students as well, irrespective of the fact they are school students or not. Just what she mentioned, that how number of students are now out of school students considered. So yes.
That's fantastic. I love that. Amazing snowballing. And I can also only imagine what kids, when they go home, are talking to their siblings or talking to their cousins or having conversations with their parents, and maybe that goodness is expanding.
And right now, we don't have one fixed agenda that it has to be part of the curriculum. We want maximum benefit to be reach to maximum number of students, right?
Yes.
So there could be different ways of doing it. We have even discussed it to a point where we said, okay, if you don't want to have a separate activity, just diffuse all those topics into the relevant subjects. For example, health, nutrition, puberty can be included into biology, you know, and then, you know, maybe general knowledge can have some other subjects, you know, so kind of diffuse it into the other subjects so that at least they're exposed to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if a teacher is watching, or a healthcare provider is watching, or an owner of a school is watching, the project is accessible to anybody who's interested? Like, trainings can be delivered to anybody, and there's no prerequisite for it at all, is there?
No, I mean, as long as you deal with adolescents, or you know, and you are in a capacity to talk to them, I think, yes, you can.
Excellent. Thank you so much, both of you, being on the show, and thank you so much for your amazing work.
Thank you.
Fantastic project. And you know, adolescents and helping out kids is something that's very close to my heart. And I think for anybody who has any child in their life who they care about, their well-being and their capacity and is so important. And I think that we all want to see our kids flourish and grow up to be brilliant, amazing, grounded people who are productive and citizens, who are responsible, who are caring, loving adults, who will have, you know, a really wonderful impact on society. And we can't keep cribbing about how things are bad without acknowledging why they are bad and trying to address and try to get at the root of all of this evil that's floating around us. And none of us exist in a vacuum, and none of us are islands, to quote John Donne, because, you know, sometimes it's nice. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time on the coffee table. Bye.